This is the Christmas Movie Screenwriter Podcast, episode number 29. Hello and welcome to the Christmas Movie Screenwriter Podcast. I'm your host, Karen McCann. The Christmas Movie Screenwriter is a podcast about writing, producing, and selling Christmas movies. You can find a transcript, show notes, and an action checklist on my website. Just go to christmasmoviescreenwriter.com and look for this episode, which is number 29. Quick few words about what I'm working on. A few production companies are reading my scripts, and I'm also finishing my second draft of my first novel. So I hope to finish it this week and then find some beta readers. And now here is the main segment. Today's guest is John Stimpson, who is a director, producer, writer, and editor at H9 Films. John writes, directs, produces, and edits motion pictures. He operates his production company H9 Films out of a loft in Worcester, Massachusetts. Integrally involved in the making of over 25 feature films, his movies play all over the world. He is also responsible for television programming airing on the Disney Network, Animal Planet, Home and Garden TV, and the Outdoor Life Network. The Legend of Lucy Keys, A Christmas Kiss, The Wrong Car, and Ghostlight top his list of best-known films. His newest project, A Very Vermont Christmas, premieres this holiday season on the Hallmark Channel. A graduate of Harvard College, John earned his degree in Visual and Environmental Studies. John is an active member of the Massachusetts Production Coalition and FILMA, Film It Locally in Massachusetts. He also enjoys guest lecturing and mentoring students at Fitchburg State University, Worcester State University, Emerson College, and Boston University. Well, John, thank you for coming on the Christmas Movie Screenwriter Podcast today.
Well, thanks for having me, Karen. I'm sorry, I should have clarified it. It's pronounced Worcester.
Worcester. There we go. Did I say Worcester?
You say, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I'd say it happens all the time. Whenever I get actors here to Massachusetts, they say, what the heck is the name of the city we're in? It's Worcester.
Worcester. Oh, I learned something new. There you go. Well, John, you're the first guest, as I mentioned before we started recording. Some of my questions are going to focus on your directing background, and it's obviously you're a producer, you're a writer, you're a director, you're an editor, so you've got lots of experience and lots of stories to tell. But let's start with the basics about collaboration. Can you describe your process of collaborating with screenwriters to bring Christmas stories to life, and what do you look for in a script?
Sure. I do collaborate with writers quite often. I tend to, of the Christmas movies I've done 10 of them now, which is crazy. Wow. But of those, I've written probably half of them, and the other half I've collaborated with writers or worked with writers and coached them or given them notes and helped them bring the script to the place that it needs to be. Because these, as you know, these movies need to fit in a very specific box.
Right.
I like to think of them, certainly they are romances set at Christmas time, primarily, and the story itself kind of falls into the third level of importance in the priority list, because it really is. It's a romance set around the magic of the Christmas season, that then where something happens that brings these people together, that they have a conflict that threatens to take them apart, and then of course they get together in the end. And it's, I guess you can call it formulaic. I don't like to use that word. It's just a model that is what the audience expects. So oftentimes when I'm working with other writers, more often than not, the stories come in and they're too big.
Too big.
They have a scope and a breadth that is lovely. Perhaps it can be lovely, but on these movies, we're working with budgets that are pretty small.
Yeah.
And we only have usually 3 weeks or less to shoot in, and So to accomplish that, there are just certain guidelines and things that we need to keep in mind to keep it in our envelope, really. And so that tends to be the thing I work with the writers, is to bring the story and the idea down in scope so that it's something we can accomplish in with a tight budget and 15 days of shooting. Uh, we work here in Massachusetts, which is
Okay.
great. We have a tax credit, and it's been terrific to work with the state to develop that. I was pretty instrumental in. I spoke to a congressional committee and
Mm,
how important that this would be to bring a tax credit and make a tax credit permanent here in the state, because it's really
okay.
what not only lures production here to Massachusetts, which over the years have been some fabulous movies shot here, but it keeps me here. I mean, honestly, if I didn't have the tax credit to work with, it's
Huh.
such a significant piece of our bottom line in
Yeah.
production that I'd have to go elsewhere, and I don't want to do that. This is my home. I
Okay.
made the lifestyle choice to live here in Massachusetts, and so. But the beauty of it is, it's kind of got sidetracked there. But the beauty of living and working here in Massachusetts, particularly in the Christmas genre, is that it's New England,
That's
and
right. Right.
and it's
Right.
lovely, and it's Christmassy, and it feels very authentic. And so we work towards that. We embrace that and bring that into our stories because we live here and we shoot here, and we don't have to fake it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess, back to your question about how I collaborate with writers is exactly that. It's keeping an eye on the the reality of the production, but also guiding the writers to make sure that the romance stays first in the priority list,
Right. Right.
um, because that's really what the audience is looking for. And then the magic of like that's I think that's the priority list that I look at. It's the romance, the Christmas magic, and then the story. It obviously needs to be interesting and fun and unique. Um, okay, good. That brings me another thought. I'm sorry, I'm running
Okay.
a
Let's hear
bit
it.
here, but no, but making sure that the ideas that are pitched have a unique twist,
Okay.
because these stories can be formulaic, can be predictable, and it's what stands out. I mean, because I get people pitch me all the time. What stands out is fresh and unique ideas,
Right.
twists in the story that I haven't seen before, that aren't representative or
Good. Good to
similar
hear.
similar to other stuff. And those can come from anywhere, really. I mean, I did a movie a couple of years ago called Christmas on Ice, which I'm about a block from downtown Worcester here, and there's a skating oval behind
Okay.
City Hall in the middle of the park. And I walk
Oh,
by every day for lunch and go grab a sandwich or whatever. And I thought, this is going to be let's
right.
build a story around this
Right.
outdoor skating
Excellent
oval
idea.
in the middle of the city, right behind City Hall, and base our story around that. And so came up with a story that worked in that place and that situation. But it was something that, sure, certainly there's been ice skating in other movies, but it just it just worked. It was a place and a location that I knew we could access. And the city was super cooperative, and it just fell into place, and it worked out. So that's just one idea, but that's what I just look for, is things that aren't just the inn up in the country that in the New York City girl who's out of place or coming back home for the holidays. I mean, it's
Right.
just,
Right.
I
Right.
feel like
Right.
those stories have been played over and over and over again. But what's the fresh new twist? And so I think that would be probably the most important thing that I try to work on with writers, is to
When
come
you
up.
when you look at a script, let's say it doesn't say Massachusetts, it just says whatever small town, whatever. Can you in your mind say, I can see this here, or do you want it to say filming in Massachusetts in the script?
Oh no, no, I don't know. I might kind of look in and think in terms of New England,
Okay.
and in the scope of where the location happens to be, unless it's specific. I mean, I did a Cape Cod Christmas, for example, and that took place on Cape Cod, so
Okay.
that was very
Okay.
specific to that place. But no, I think if if it doesn't if the city or the town or the place is not integral to the story, then it doesn't really matter, where it
Right.
takes place, unless it just
Okay.
we can find, the beauty of so Worcester is about an hour west of Boston, and
Mm.
so outside of kind of the hubbub of the Boston and the city itself. So Worcester is also, though, the second biggest city in New England, bigger than Providence and bigger than Springfield and Portland, Maine, or any of those. So it's a decent urban center, but 10 minutes out of the city, we're in the country, and there's farms
Oh, that's nice.
and rolling hills, and all of it, we're out here, so we can kind of find almost anything we need to house a story here. So that's kind of fun. But no, I don't necessarily look at it has to happen in Massachusetts. I just like
Oh,
to take
okay.
advantage of what Massachusetts has to offer.
Okay. Now, regarding audience appeal, what elements do you believe are essential to make a Christmas movie resonate with audiences year after year?
When people watch one of these movies, they know exactly what to expect. Uh, and as I said before, it's really a love story. It's two people coming together around the magic of Christmas, falling in love or starting to fall in love, finding an obstacle, something that makes this love seem like it's not possible, or like they like what that it just isn't going to work, and
Right.
then working through that to solve the problem, get over the obstacle, and ultimately come together and have a wonderful, lovely kiss in the end.
Of course. Of course.
Although it's funny how I don't know if you'd heard about or seen the document that got circulated, and it was supposedly from Hallmark. I don't even know, because I've done Hallmark films and I've not seen it directly from them. But it had sort of all the rules of a Hallmark
Oh, okay.
movie, and it had certain limitations, like you can't have a kiss before page 80 or something
Oh,
like that. And but there was a certain amount of truth to the document, and again, it might have
okay.
just been one of
That's
those
funny.
internet urban legends or something,
Yeah. Urban legend.
but
Yeah.
but there is some truth to that. There is and But I've also broken the rules about with that
Right.
kiss. And A
Right. Right.
Christmas Kiss, my very first Christmas movie, the very first act, they kiss.
Okay.
Because the elevator's plummeting to
Oh,
the
oh,
bottom
there you go.
floor, and they feel like they're about to meet their doom,
Doom.
and they
Okay.
fall into each other's arms and they kiss. But that's the beginning of the movie, and so
It's
that
cute.
we broke the rules with that. And then for the rest of the movie, she has to figure out who was this mystery man that she
Oh, oh,
you
what a
know
cute story.
oh
Okay.
yeah, that's
What
been
a Christmas kiss.
A Christmas Kiss, and that's been
Okay.
a classic, and that airs all over the place, and it's been around for about 15 years now.
Oh, that's great.
But so there are ways to break those rules. I mean, I think
Oh,
that's
yeah.
that's the thing. Yes, there are certain expectations, there are certain rules that people tend to follow in writing and making these movies. But that a rule, if it's for a good reason, can be broken, and should be broken, because that's the kind of twist of freshness
Right.
that we can bring to these things, that give it something that hasn't been seen before, and that might
Exactly.
shake up the genre a little bit.
Yes, good. Now, speaking of
Yeah.
shaking up, let's talk about director challenges. What are some of the biggest challenges you face when directing a Christmas movie, and how do you overcome them?
I would say the biggest challenge is delivering production value at a high level for a small budget,
Mm,
um, which is something we've gotten pretty good at here, and we have a wonderful production crew base and some super talented designers and cinematographers and wardrobe designers and just down the line. We have terrific folks here in Massachusetts, and we've been able to add a small budget because these things are limited in what the market can bear.
Right.
Ultimately, it comes
Right.
down to what the networks are willing to pay for these things. That has to drive it. So understanding that limitation, I think the biggest challenge as a director is to deliver a quality, high production value movie with wonderful acting and great storytelling and beautiful imagery
Mhm.
at the level that will compete with what's some of the you think about some of the classic Christmas movies. I just watched The Holiday, for example, which was great. Or
Right.
um, I don't know. There's just, you think of the higher end Christmas movies the expectation that
Right.
people have for these, and we're working at a fraction of the budget that those have, and we still have to deliver something that has the appeal and the production value on the screen that will live up to that and to meet those expectations, and that's always the challenge. There's also an expectation from the networks and we laugh about it. We're like, there's got to be a little bit of Christmas in every frame.
Oh, okay.
I look at you and your set there. I assume it's a set or your background with your lights and because you're in Southern
Yeah.
California. I
Yeah.
know
Yeah. That's right.
you're not sitting there in a snowy wooded,
Yeah.
but
No, not outside.
yeah, but we just have to we work that. I mean, we have to really fill the frame with this lovely, I don't know, the spirit of Christmas, whether it's literal Christmas or the spirit of Christmas, it's got to be there in the feeling of the images that we build. So we're always, we just take it, we go, there's a prop house here in Worcester, which is one of the foremost prop houses on the whole East Coast. And it's called Westerman's, and they're fantastic. And they have 4 floors of
Wow.
warehouse space full of props and stuff. And we go, whenever we start another project, we got to go and we just raid it. We take all the Christmas
All
staff that
right.
we can
Good. That
because
sounds like
we
fun.
know we're gonna need it. But that's the other thing. Yeah, we really want to paint a picture of a typical or extraordinary Christmas,
Right.
that people can just fantasize about. That's
When
that's yeah.
when you said production value for budget, how does a follow-up question to that would be you're trying to stay within the budget, the network's only going to pay you whatever the fee is. How does that relate to casting? Do you have to have one of the A-list Hallmark stars, or is this some kind of thing where the story and the romance is all that matters? And you might have some younger actresses that might not be famous. Is that something that is more common in Christmas movies?
I think, well, there are certain, if you're making a movie that's an original, if Hallmark is paying for the movie to be produced, then they for example, I mean, it could be Hallmark, it could be Lifetime, it could be AMC, Ion, lots of different people making these movies, or people that we've licensed our movies to. But if the network is making the movie, they certainly have their qualified actors that they need to have in the film, or that they need to approve to have in the film. And that's part of it. And sometimes there's negotiations, or there in the budgeting they'll make exceptions, or they'll pick up the cost of an actor or an actress who's more expensive,
Mm,
up beyond, what they call breakage beyond the budget.
okay.
So there'll be situations like that where certain actors will need to come in, but there's also, we've most of the time we make movies that are spec movies.
Mm,
We have relationships with the networks, and we understand the expectation of the kind of level of actor that they like to see,
okay.
and then we do our best to meet that expectation. And sometimes we'll we'll work with them ahead of time to say, is this kind of an actor? Is this the kind of actor that would
Mm,
work for you if we were to go ahead with hiring this person, or that kind of a, since we do have relationships with the
right,
networks, that
right.
those kind of conversations can happen. But we've learned over the years, though, what caliber of actor we need to
Mm,
make it work. And and there's always diversity concerns and things
right. Of course.
that we work with. But but typically, if we will work with, well, Katie LeClaire is a good example. I've had her; she's been the star of 4 of my movies now.
Oh, wow.
And so the first couple that we did together, one we made a deal with AMC, one we made a deal with Lifetime, and then when we approached Hallmark with the movie a couple years ago called Letters to Santa, we had Katie attached to play the lead actress again, because she's become a dear friend, and she's just absolutely wonderful, and she's a great actor, and she just absolutely fits the bill for it. Yeah, she was on the show Switched at Birth, if people
Okay.
remember.
Okay.
Katie, the deaf girl on Switched at Birth. But anyway, she is kind of new to the Hallmark team of actresses, but now she was in Letters to Santa last year, and now this year she's also in The Very Vermont Christmas that we made.
Wow.
So maybe we're starting a trend with Hallmark, and she'll become part of their stable. I don't know. I hope so, because
There you, there
she's
you
absolutely
go. Well,
she's
that's
absolutely
great. That's good to
yeah.
hear.
Yeah, so that's the kind of thing. I mean, I've worked with lots of different actors, but and it's always with any movie, whether it's a Christmas movie or not, you want to get the not only just the right actor for the part, but the right actor that's going to help sell the movie.
Right.
Ultimately, you can't get away from the fact that
Right.
the a well-known actor who's got a track record behind them, that the audience is going to recognize, is going to make a big difference in getting your movie sold and
Right.
out into the world, because we are in the motion picture business.
Right. Right.
It is a business, and if you don't sell your movie, you're not going to be able to do it again. So that's
Exactly.
kind
Exactly.
of our motto.
Now,
um,
I know you've written, you're a writer, director, producer, writer, director, editor. You got so many hats.
I
Let's
do.
talk
I
about
wear a lot of hats.
let's talk about the writer director transition. What challenges do you face transitioning from writing to directing a Christmas screenplay?
Well, it's sort of what's nice about, and I'm so lucky to be in the position I'm in, to know not only as a director what the screenplay needs to have in place to execute it on the set
Right.
in a finite number of days and so forth. It's really helpful to have that understanding, the understanding of the juxtaposition of scenes, what's gonna transition from one scene to another, big to small, dramatic to calm, whatever the transitional elements might make sense. And as an editor, I've learned over the years also, in terms of what it takes to build a scene, and to know when we have enough,
Hmm.
and not shoot things that we're not going to use, because that's just a
Right.
waste of time.
Right.
I've over the years, I've been doing this a long time. I've learned, because I've got skills in other areas besides just writing, and I've had that experience. I can bring that to the screenwriting of
That's great.
process, and know how to concisely and poignantly and cleverly build a story and dialogue and characters that will be ultimately producible in a way that's smooth. I do struggle with some writers that I work with to understand that, to understand
Right.
just the language, the visual language that most screenwriters get the feeling of that, but understanding the language and the transition from page to screen, and
Right.
what it takes to pull, and what is important on the page that will really help the director, and what is extraneous, and what is not helpful to me as a director. And when I can shortchange that, obviously, when I write it myself. but there are elements that kind of details, for example, that aren't critical to the
Right, right,
storytelling, that are in the story or on the page, that just don't matter, that ultimately I'm going to change as a director, or I'm going to work in, or it's the the wardrobe's decision what that character is going to be wearing. It doesn't really matter
right.
what's on the page. It's just as long as you set the right tone. So there's elements like that that as a director, and as an editor, I think editors would make wonderful writers too,
Mm,
because
yeah.
it's so helpful to see ultimately how a scene is broken down into shots, and how those shots are assembled, and how those shots fit in the juxtapositions of scenes that build the story on ultimately for the edit, and again, what is helpful and what is not. And that and there's maybe someday I'll write a book about that or something, because
Yeah, you should. You should.
it's
That
a
would be good because most writers, even nowadays, writers aren't even getting on set anymore.
mm,
So they might just, here's the script, thank you very much, here's your check. That's it. So if you're not on set, you really don't see how the director's working. You obviously are not in the editing process
yeah,
if you're like starting out.
yeah.
So yeah, that book would be very, I think it would sell very well. I'll buy it myself.
In
Um,
the same, it's similar to I often I've got thousands and thousands of casting sessions over the years, and I've worked with some casting directors back in the day before everything kind of went virtual and self tapes and stuff. But I've worked with some casting directors who bring in a reader, an actor who reads against the other characters that are auditioning,
uh-huh.
and I watch that actor who gets that opportunity to sit and audition with all these other actors over the course of
Mm,
the days, whatever. I thought, oh my God, how valuable would that be
yeah.
for an actor to see what's working and what's not. Then they sit like a fly on the wall after the actor leaves, and they hear the discussion between myself,
Oh,
producers, and the
wow.
casting director. We talk about, oh my gosh, that person nailed it. Oh God, I wish they hadn't done that. Whatever it is, you can, as an actor, to see that and understand what really makes a good audition is invaluable. That would be so great to get that chance. So I tell actors, volunteer to be a reader with a casting director, because you will learn so much. And I think back to screenwriting, in any genre, Christmas movie, anything, if you have the chance to sit on set and watch what goes
Right,
on, be a PA, get a
right,
job just be on a set and be around it, so you can
right,
absorb how the process works, and how your words on a page ultimately get broken down and executed, and how dialogue flows out of an actor's mouth, and when it works well and when it doesn't, and why,
right.
is so important to see. And so unless you're really engaged in the process, that's really difficult. So, I think that would be a lesson that I would certainly advocate for, is that to get involved however you can in the
Yeah.
process of making a movie or a TV show, so that when you're writing, kind of where it goes. Once you put your words go on the page, what happens next? Because
Well, I
that's
think I think you should write that book, and I think you should recommend to any actor readers out there to write a book too, what it's like to be an actor reader and know the inside scoop.
Well,
Um,
interestingly, I mentioned A Christmas Kiss that I was auditioning actors for that movie, and the actress who was doing the reading with all the other actors turned to the cat. She went to the ladies' room or something, and I said, "Who's she? She's terrific. She's really good." I mean, and we ended up casting her in a supporting role in the film.
that's a great story.
Yeah.
I think that's a script. I think that would
And
be a
she's gone
nice,
on to
nice.
have she's gone on to have a wonderful career. So, and I'd like to think we got her for her first break, but
There you go. There you go.
yeah,
Okay, well, now let's talk about what everyone is on everyone's mind when they're making a movie is money. Now you're obviously you've got the H9 films.
yeah.
Let me ask this. If a financier prefers a different director for your script, is that a deal breaker for you, or do you just make films for your own company?
Um,
Direct films.
yeah, it's an interesting question, because I've never had that opportunity. Everything I've written that I've, or every every script that I've written that has been produced and made has we've done it. I mean,
Oh,
my
great.
so although I have had some screenplays that have been optioned that are out there and are potentially being considered for other directors, I've sort of waived
Hmm.
my my right to be for for right of first refusal, whatever, because I don't want to hold it up.
Right.
This is an ego filled business, of course, but I don't have the ego to necessarily stop something from moving forward,
Right.
particularly
Right.
if I've co-written it, for example. I'm happy if we feel like we've if given it a good shot and it still hasn't picked up steam, or and there's somebody who thinks, oh, let me see if I can get it to this other director. Of
Right.
course,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm not
Yeah.
going to stand in the way of that just because of the ego. So,
Good.
uh, you
Good.
know, so the answer to that, in that sort of a imagined way is no, I wouldn't let that happen. But luckily, I I write because I want to direct,
Right.
and writing I was the way I found my way into being a director. And I
Okay.
think it's a great way for people to do that, because if you can control the material, you have at least a say in who's going to direct your material if you can will that project to life in some way. Because ultimately, it's like Mark Duplass says, every single project that he's done, and he's certainly at a level way above where I am, he's had to will it to life. He's had to just, you
I like
know,
that.
it's so difficult to get a movie made. But
Yeah.
if
Right.
you have the screenplay in your
Yeah.
hand
Yeah. Yeah.
that you wrote, you have a much better leg up in terms of getting that over the finish line. And so that's the way I look at it. I mean, and I've certainly gotten a track record now, which is nice. I've got a team of financiers that know me and love what they've done with me, and we've been able to
Okay.
make money together over the years. And so in that regard, the people that help finance my films are doing it because of me. They're not doing it
Right. Right.
because of the project. And
Right.
so
Okay. Great.
that's really helpful in that regard. But it is just every single project, even at whatever level, is got to be just something you just, like I said, you have to will it to life. You have to
Yeah.
work so
That
hard.
is right.
And it's
That's
like
right.
starting every single project's like starting a new company.
That's
You
right. It's exactly
It
right.
really is. And it is literally, because we open up a new LLC for every single movie. And so it's just the way you do it. But yeah, it's a challenging world, and it's so difficult. And I feel for writers who are trying to break in, because it just takes so much to get somebody to pay attention, even just to read your script, let
Yeah.
alone
Yeah.
option it or make a deal to, in the one in a million chance that you get it actually made is just, ooh, it's so hard. But I do think that you've hit on something with your podcast here.
Thank you.
The Christmas market is something it's probably more accessible,
I
because
agree. I agree.
you think about how many of these little movies that get released every year. There's dozens and dozens of new ones every year, so people want them. And so if you can do something fresh and fun and unique, you got a shot.
How does the Christmas movie market compare to the romance or rom-com market? Is it equal? Is it bigger? Smaller?
Um, well, I don't. I think it's bigger. I think
It's
it's
good to hear.
because there are more made, and more. There's more demand to be filled
True.
with all the various networks that like to premiere 10, 20, 30 new films every year. I mean, that's
It's
great.
good to hear.
I think, and there's something fun about the holiday season that lasts 8 weeks or whatever it is, from Halloween through New Year's. So so it's there's a chunk of time where people are interested in watching this kind of movie, whereas there isn't really any other season of the year that
Right.
that
right.
has that much time and that much interest. So I think if there is, it's hard to say, well, make an Easter movie or a Halloween movie or a Thanksgiving movie. You certainly
Yeah,
could, but that wouldn't be the feature. That wouldn't be
right,
the hook of the whole thing.
right,
With the way these
right.
Christmas movies are, and it's that magic of Christmas that really drives the story. So I think that's what's unique, and that's what's special about these, and what makes them this genre a little more accessible. I mean, rom-com, it's so funny. You listen to the people talk about the ebbs and flows of the market and what people are watching, and right now things are a little bit upside down. Nobody's quite sure what's
Mm,
happening.
right.
I mean, I just mourn the fact that people don't go to movie theaters anymore, and they're
Mm,
distracted by their phones while they're watching TV or watching a film on TV. And it's not that communal experience anymore that
right.
we grew up with and loved, and laughing. There's nothing like laughing or crying with an audience together while all experiencing the same film. And that's a shame. I mean, I hope that changes, but I just don't see it for the near future
Yeah, yeah,
moving back in that way. Um, so I think what we're dealing with now is a new world of streaming and
yeah.
cable TVs falling away. They're not quite sure what to do with their programming and what they're doing. I mean, but I think you look at a network like Hallmark, though, that I think is still got
Right.
it's still going strong, and I think they certainly in the Christmas movies that they make, they're doing well. But they've got a lot of stuff going in the rest of the year as well, and that's where more of these romances that you talk about, rom-coms and so forth, I think do have a home and can be targeted. So yeah, there's an outlet for them, but.
Yeah.
It was
How
funny
I,
because for a while, back I did a bunch of thrillers for Lifetime, women in peril thrillers, which was sort of their thing, and that was hot for a while, and we could get pretty good money for those. But then the market for that seemed to drop away, and particularly
huh,
in the foreign markets, we couldn't. The thrillers weren't selling quite as well, and
okay.
so it's funny, there you gotta. It's important to pay attention to what's going on in the market, but I don't think you don't want to follow trends, because by the time a trend has come and gone and you've written the screenplay based on that trend, there's
It's too
something
late.
new out there.
It's
So
too
I
late.
think you got to follow your heart, and most important is just to come up with fresh and compelling new ideas.
You mentioned foreign markets. How is the foreign market for Christmas movies?
Not as sharp and strong as it was.
Okay.
It's changed. We used to count on maybe a third of our revenue from foreign sales, but
Hmm,
it's dropped to a quarter or less,
okay.
um, which is just something we have to deal with and think about. Um, yeah, I mean, I did a little TED talk years ago, which was fun, and the theme of my talk was hitting singles up the middle in the motion picture business, because and that's kind of what I do, because sure, I always hope for the home run, and I've done a couple of films that pushed the boundaries and spent more money and risked a little bit more and took a bigger swing, but those are risky and they're harder to do. But
Right.
I think about, okay, I'll hit my solid singles up the middle all day long,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so when we think about our budgets, and we that's what we do. We think about, all right, what can we really count on, and what's a safe bet,
Yes.
that
Yes.
we can pitch to our investors and say, look, at worst comes to worst, we're still going to break even,
Right.
and this is
Right.
why. And
Right.
this is what we can count on historically. And but there's always a chance that, something
Right.
bigger happens.
That's right.
But at this smaller scale, it's really hard to think about a little movie like this that you make for, under $1 million. You kind of know where it's got to land, and the
Right.
chance of it ever really breaking out on a large scale, theatrically or otherwise, is just virtually impossible. So
Yeah.
it's kind of silly to think in terms
True.
of that run.
True.
So that's why it's safer to think about a single up the middle.
Yeah, good point. Now, what advice would you give to aspiring directors who want to enter the Christmas movie market?
Find yourself a sweet, special little story and either write it or work with a writer to develop it and wrestle the money out of somebody and make it. It's the only way to do it. There's no other way. I mean, you can, well, you can pitch the network. You can try to get a meeting. You can try to get yourself through the door. But like anything, you can look at it like the chicken and the egg. Okay,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I can raise the money, but not unless I know where the distribution's coming from. But if I'm not going to get distribution if I don't have any money. So,
Right. Right.
so that's the balance. And so, sometimes it just takes taking a big risk and doing something that is clever as possible for as little money as possible, but still retain your production value. So, you know, I think that that's what directors need to do and make short films, go to festivals,
Mhm.
network, find
Mhm.
your way to production companies, knock on doors, hustle. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
that's the business. And
Exactly.
I left LA 30 plus years ago. I did spend a few years out there after college, but I moved back here for the lifestyle of living in and raising my family here in New England. This is where I'm from. This is where my roots are. And so I never really felt like I could settle in LA. It was a great place to go when I was young and learn and experience that place there's nothing like the excitement of the business in Los Angeles. There really isn't. It's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I for made that choice to come back to Boston, the Boston area, and live here. And so I probably sacrificed opportunity by doing that. But I said to myself at the time, I said, well, I just got to do the best I can and make it happen where I live, and that's what I've done. And I'm so lucky that 30 years later, I've been able
Right.
to make a career as a writer and a director, and I'm thrilled about that.
You sort of answered my next question, which is advice to your younger self. What advice would you give your younger self, and would you do anything differently?
Oh gosh. I mean, don't be afraid to knock on doors. Don't be afraid to reach out to people. Don't be afraid to hear no. You only live once, and you just got to put yourself out there. And if you believe in yourself, if you believe in your ideas, there's no reason to hesitate. And and you learn as you get older and wiser that that's kind of how things work, and that any good salesman has to knock on the door 7 or 8
Right.
times before they
Exactly.
get their first order from a new customer, and that's okay. So if that first email doesn't get returned, don't give up. Go again. Try them again. Okay, how
Yeah.
else can
Yeah.
you reach out to this person? And I certainly know from the number of inquiries and emails and stuff I get. I try my best to answer them all, but I can't. It's
Right. Of
just
course.
impossible. And
Of
so,
course.
if somebody is persistent and funny and catches my eye in an interesting way, I'll pay attention and I'll eventually I'll get back to you. So, persistence, pleasant persistence, I think is the key to any pursuit, particularly when it's something like this where it's a people business, it's a hustle business, it's a difficult business,
Right.
and so you just got to keep trying. You just got to keep throwing ideas against the wall. And the other thing and this is it might be a little bit of an aside, but and it's not necessarily an advice to myself, but I think it's good advice for writers is to have don't just have one idea you're hanging all your hopes
Right.
on. Have a dozen ideas. Have your whole stove full of simmering pots that are all different bubbling ideas at various stages. Maybe some is, you've got a first draft of that. Maybe you've just got a treatment of that. Maybe you've got a finished script here that you're pretty confident about that you can let people read. But until you start throwing these ideas against the wall and see if any of them gain traction or stick, because that's the only way to go. Because it's so hard to hang all your hopes on one idea. And I've spoken to screenwriting classes, and I've talked to these young writers that they've been working on one script for 2-3 years, and I think, oh my gosh, I could have written 5 or 6 scripts by now. Just
Yeah.
get an idea out there. Talk to people. Don't be afraid to pitch the idea to people, because
Yeah.
people worry, oh, they're going to steal my idea. Oh my gosh, there's so many ideas out there. It's just waste of time to worry. To
Yeah.
worry about that. If
Yeah.
you have a chance to give somebody your elevator pitch, give it to them. See if they spark to it. Because if you see their eyes glaze over, you think, okay, well, maybe there's something about my pitch that wasn't good, but maybe it's that the idea wasn't necessarily something
Right.
that
Right.
was intriguing enough that should be pursued. Maybe I should put that one aside. Figure out something that, in a line or two, that you get a chance at a cocktail party to pitch somebody, and they go, oh, that's a cool idea. Then
Yeah.
you're on to something, because until you get somebody saying, I like it, the snowball's not going to start to grow. And
Exactly.
you gotta get people and interest and excitement behind your idea to even at the very beginning, even if it's just the kernel of an idea, just start that snowball gathering, growing. That's the best way to go about it, I think, and have lots of ideas. Oh, you should see my whiteboard. I've got a dozen ideas that are all, and that's the way, and they are ideas. They're a dime a dozen. I mean, you just read the news, you watch TV, you look outside. I
Right.
walked past the
The
skating
ice
rink
skating rink. Yeah. And you got that idea and you made a movie. So
movie. So
excellent.
yeah,
Excellent.
yeah,
Well, to wrap up, would you like to share any social media details or website links
sure.
where audience can keep track of your work?
Well, I do. I'm not hugely active, but when things are up, I am on Instagram at John Stimp, JOHNSTIMP. My website is h9films.com, the letter H, number 9films.com. You can check out my work there. But I'm kind of old school. I'm not I'm not hugely active in social media stuff, but I should get my kids to do that for me.
Yeah. Well, John, thank you for sharing your experience, your knowledge. I've learned a lot and it was very inspiring. So thank you for coming on the Christmas Movie Screenwriter podcast today.
Well, thank you for having me. It was really fun.
And now for my action checklist. I have 5 items for your action checklist from my interview with John. Here are 5 steps to pitching your holiday script. Number 1, build a diverse portfolio of ideas. Create multiple unique and festive screenplay concepts, each with a compelling twist. The twist is very important. Producers are always looking for fresh takes, so show your range and creativity. Number 2, understand market demands. Stay informed about the increasing demand for Christmas content, especially on streaming platforms and cable networks. Tailor your pitch to highlight how your story meets that platform's current audience preferences. And you really need to do your due diligence and figure out what audiences each platform is catering to. Number 3, break the rules with fresh perspectives. Don't be afraid to challenge genre conventions. A unique angle or unexpected element can make your script stand out in a saturated market. Number 4, be pleasantly persistent. Follow up with producers consistently but respectfully. It takes multiple attempts to get noticed and stay on their radar. Number 5, pitch with confidence and clarity. Present your ideas enthusiastically, emphasizing their marketability and why they align with the producer's goals. Rejection is part of the process. Treat it as a learning opportunity. Well, that's the show. Thanks for listening. To show your support, please leave us a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcasts. And you can fuel more great content by buying me a hot cocoa on Buy Me a Coffee. Just look for the page Christmas Movie and explore other inspiring podcasts and blogs on our website at christmasmoviescreenwriter.com. I'm your host, Karen McCann. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next Christmas Movie Screenwriter podcast. Bye.